It's 12 o'clock in Frisco, Texas, and it's time for Smoker Broker Radio with Robert Mesh, a.k.a. the Smoker Broker. Robert is the owner of Small World Realty and has employed hundreds of real estate agents in his 17-year career. He has instructed and mentored over 10,000 real estate agents at the highly acclaimed Champions School of Real Estate and is considered an expert in Texas residential realty. Robert is also an advocate of true entrepreneurial spirit and has helped many to transition from corporate America into the world of self-employment. And now live from the studio to your world, the Smoker Broker.
Hey, welcome to Smoker Broker. I'm Robert Mesh, and I'm the guy they call Smoker Broker. Happy Thursday. Hope everything's going well. Spring is in the air, at least in Dallas it is. In Texas it is. We go from below 2 or whatever to 70 degrees just that quick in the snap of a finger. And that's exactly how the weather works in Dallas and in Texas, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, every place we practice. Crazy that we go from these February to Marches. There really is just no transition. It's just bam, there it is, and back into nice weather. Lots going on, has been for months now. Nothing has changed. Every week there is something new. Of course, this past week, probably one of the worst anniversaries ever is that we are faced with what most people consider the anniversary of COVID. We have officially crossed 1 year. 1 year since the scare, that really wasn't a scare, became worse than a scare, gripped us. And we have been battling for the past year, and no doubt our lives changed forever. It's really significant if you think about it. Many generations have gone through different types of events. We have World War II, and then you have, Vietnam, Iraq, 9/11. We've had tons of issues that have been life-changing things for us. But this one here, this past year has never been anything like something we've seen. And it's continuing. It's not done. We're still into the life-changing events and where we're at and what it is that we do and how do we end up. And it's ironic that this is the year anniversary this week because it's not like COVID has not been in the news every day for the last 365 days of the year. But what's interesting this week is that it really surfaced again, and ironically, in our very own state, where the battle lines have been drawn, where the governor of the state of Texas this past week announced that we are removing the mask mandate. And it has been met with a lot of opinions. I mean, I have to tell you, I'm surprised. I'm surprised at the strong differencing opinions. I'm not even going to state mine because it's too politically incorrect right now with everybody. Because whatever you say, someone's not going to like the other answer. So, I usually stay away from controversial subjects. And I'm not going to go over that, but I will tell you, whatever side you're on, I am shocked at how emphatic both sides are about how they feel about that. You've got some people that are just in great euphoria right now because the masks are off. And there are some people that have just hated it from day one, whether they cared about how it affects others or not is not their thought process. Their thought process is their lives have been changed because of it. And then you got the others that are like, well, yeah, my life's been changed too because you didn't wear one. I've lost a family member. We still have large events of people that now are being encouraged that they don't have to have a mask. I thought it was interesting, the school districts takes. The schools were very emphatic. They came out immediately and they're like, no, do not keep the mask on. And you have a lot of businesses, big businesses in the state of Texas that are putting their foot down and saying, I don't care what the opinion of the governor is, we're not going to allow it. I think Kroger was one.
That's such bad optics for me because I just poured water all over myself and I started laughing, but it looks like I'm laughing at what you were saying.
So Brent finds this comical. Yeah. I am glad you clarified that, because someone who is watching is like, God, this guy's a jerk.
Yeah. That's joinswr.com.
He does not represent or is affiliated with. Yeah. I'm glad you clarified that, because it is tough. It's a tough thing. It's a serious thing. And I'm just, maybe I shouldn't be surprised. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised by it, but God, it was so, I guess the people that I know personally, I was surprised by some of their takes on it. I didn't think that they would necessarily respond the way they did. It does appear that there are a lot of people, and they will side with the health experts, that are saying, hey, look, this is not a good idea. But then you have the business people who are saying it's a hell of a great idea. And y'all, we are in a modern day culture war right now. Our country has never been more divided, probably since the Civil War itself, on what we should do and what we should not do. You know, I talk about the Civil War not because of the main premise of the Civil War, but the Civil War in the succeeding of the states, you know, the succeeding of the Union. You know, we're not anywhere near anything like that in modern day time. But I got to tell you, there are a lot of people out there that, with the rules and the laws that are in place and how it's different from one state to another, hence large corporations in another state saying that they will not follow the rules of another state. It's very interesting where that puts us in the culture eye and the public's eye, and what's right and what's wrong. And there's a strong opinion as to whether I need to have a mask or whether I don't have to have a mask. There's a strong opinion of it's been long enough. There's another strong opinion that it hasn't been long enough. We are in a culture war. We are in a situation where literally, if you're talking to someone, anyone, even a friend, you better bear the consequence of what you say if you're ready to have a debate about it. It's coming. And that's how widespread it is. Now, again, everything we talk about on this show is geared towards real estate because it affects us. And I'm telling you right now, this past week, that has reignited our COVID conversations. And nothing's changed in how we're, understanding of COVID and, the existence of it and the danger of it. But now what's happening, and this is where, if you're paying attention, you'll understand why we're talking about it. Now what's happening is you have a governor that says you don't have to have the mask on, but you have a homeowner that says you better damn well have a mask on when you come into my house. So then you get the person who's a free-loving American Texan who says, you can't tell me what I have to do. And then you get the owner who says, you can't tell me what I can do in my house. And then you get, well, you invited me because you put that key box on the door and you said I could come in. You didn't say I had to abide by this, this, and this. And I'm telling you right now, that hasn't been discussed on the public level yet, because unless you're a real estate agent, it probably doesn't come up. It's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Mark my words. It's coming, where you're going to have an owner that says you have to have the mask on, and the person coming in says, you can't tell me what to do, and you can't stop me from coming in because you invited me in by putting that on there. And this goes deeper, because when people start digging and they get upset, then they start making other excuses as why they won't let them in.
Yep, fair housing, man. Look out.
You just watch. You just watch. I find it funny that hasn't been talked about on the more public means and media.
Well, just wait for stores too. People walking in, some stores want to do it, and then you're gonna get.
So
I think we're so divided, huh?
Brent, so Kroger is a good example. Kroger's always near and dear to my heart. That's where I started years ago. How does Kroger handle the person that comes in and says, "Hey, look,
Yep.
the governor of the state said I don't have to have the damn thing on.
Yep.
If you really want to take this further, I've already had it a month ago."
Yep.
So what are you going to do? Remove me? Are you going to throw me out right now? Is that what you're really prepared to do? Are you really prepared to go on national news and remove me? Now, This is different. This isn't like before. It was before accepted that, hey, we have to have it on. We got major problems, and we need to have it on. Hell, even the people that didn't want to have masks on agree that, hey, look, we're there. But now, you've got enough people, especially at an executive level, that are saying that's not the case.
Yep.
It surprises me that we haven't seen more conversation about how this is going to play out and what are the dangers. Because look, let's face it, the general public, they're dangerous in themselves.
Yep.
The amount of people out there and what they're capable of doing. I mean, the Capitol siege is a great example. That has nothing to do with whether you're Republican or Democrat or Trump or Biden. It remains that there were some people that in their heads, that was the best thing to do. Which means that you're going to have hundreds and thousands of them testing this process.
Yep.
Mark my words too. You better believe someone already has a dedicated plan to test that.
I think you're going to start seeing division between stores and restaurants, right? So there's some people that say, okay, this store requires masks, so I'm going to go there, and people say, I'm going to go to this store because they don't enforce the mask mandate, and you're going to see even more divisiveness.
Advertising.
Yep.
Then it crosses into political lines, which is really not political. At least it shouldn't be.
Are you gonna run two separate sets of ads? Are you gonna do A/B testing, like one with you with a mask on and then without, and just see which tests better?
And then you get to the hypocrisy of all the people who they were told as long as they have a dedicated medical, like if they have asthma, that they don't have to have it. And there's a lot of people out there that just made it up so they don't have to have it. I'm not having an opinion on who did it and who did not do it. What I'm talking about is the hypocrisy that a lot of people have gotten away with not having it on, and the stores haven't removed those people because they're scared to death that person will come after them. But now you got average Joe going in there. He doesn't have to have an excuse. All he has to say is, look, what's going on here? Who runs this place? Yep. Is it the state or is it the retailer that doesn't reside here that was welcomed in here and who, by the way, pays federal, state, and local taxes? Right? No, not state taxes. Federal for sure. Yep. I mean, at what point? At what point do we draw a line and say that's okay? Now the governor did. You have to admit it's pretty slick if you read it. He's very clear that, and it's what opened that window. It was very clear that it was the business decision to do it.
Yep.
They were smart enough to put that in there, but they should have known that was coming through. They should have known that was going to possibly be an issue in there. So I tell you, it's every day is a new wake up as to what's the right procedure. You know, in our group and a lot of other real estate teams in general, we've had to switch to where we communicate at least on a bi-weekly basis and sometimes even on a daily basis with our crews, making sure they're doing the right things because it changes so much. And it's been, I have to admit, it's been my most challenging year since I've been doing this in 20 years. It's been my most challenging because daily we have to evaluate political environments, local environments, real estate trends, high sales, low sales, the amount of buyers that we have, the low amount of homes that we have. I mean, it's challenging. It's hard to bring in new agents and train them that they have to bid 20 or 30 or 40K over when historically they should be betting 10 to 15 under. And then this goes away a year and all the hundreds of thousands of agents we trained over the last 2 or 3 years have been trained to put an offer in at 5 to 10,000 over. So this is challenging. If you lead a large group of people, that becomes very difficult because we're responsible for all of them. Which means the teachings that we have, and our teachings are based historically. Because that's all we can do is pick a time where we're like, this is what usually happens. So you got new guys coming in and like, well, that's not what the tutorial says. And I'm like, no. Which means we have to be involved with you. Now we have a catch to that in our group. We have a savior on that side of it. That's the reason why we say that we have to go through all of it with you. Just in case you didn't catch that, we remind you. So you might say, well, the training wasn't like that. I'm like, yeah, you don't have to worry. It's going to be caught one way or the other when you go through. So, and by the way, you want a little self-plug in there. If you don't have someone that's doing that for you, you are really gambling. You are at the craps table. You're just hoping that you're not going to get caught or do something wrong. That is why I joined SWR.com. We are very peculiar about making sure that we are all over looking at everything you do. We watch all the stuff that you do. We review all of it. And there's a damn good reason for it. So that's important ourselves. We've got an informative show today. You know, a lot of times I'll say great or, fun or something we haven't done in a while. I'm pretty transparent when it comes to our shows. This one's informative. Now, from a content standpoint, good. Because what we're about to talk about, which is appraisal, the agents out there, they have trouble with it, especially the new one. And tying back to what we just talked about, in this environment, it's very difficult. The appraisals can be very tough right now because of the swings in prices and the high above bids of what the houses were. So this show is going to be very informative for a lot of agents. This is a good show to share to your peer agent friends. This is a good show today if you're a manager, a team lead, or whatever, an operating partner that you should send to your guys to say, hey, look, we've been having trouble with this. This must have come up in the office 15 times this past week. You know, why don't y'all watch this show? Because it's another step in someone saying this is what you should be doing with this type of thing. So that's going to be super important. Before we do that, though, I do like to get our sponsors out of the way. I'm excited today. I'm always appreciative of the sponsors we have, but today we have a new sponsor. And I got to tell you, the new sponsor, I like this guy a lot. I do. Brent's going to share the information on it, but I've had the privilege of meeting with this guy for the last few weeks. And anybody who knows me, it's very rare for me to meet a vendor partner in less than a month's time and grow somewhat interested and attached to what they're doing. But that's how impressive our new sponsor is. So I'm really going to enjoy Brent sharing that, and I do very appreciative of having him sponsor and being a new working partner with us as we go on. Plus, it's very appropriate that we are doing an appraisal show today, because that's something that certainly affects the job that he does as well. So Brent, let's go ahead and talk about our sponsors real quick, and then we'll get going.
Okay, we have 3 sponsors today. Our new one is George DiGianni. In 2018, there were 120,000 realtors in Texas. 2 years later, in 2020, there are now 140,000. That's 10,000 new realtors in Texas every year. Almost every realtor George DiGianni has met doesn't know their customer-centric value proposition and distinct competencies that set them apart from hundreds of thousands of realtors in Texas. George is the only mortgage lender who helps realtors excel beyond their current level of success by incorporating his academic knowledge from Harvard and 29-year business prowess in a consultative session. Guess what? It's free. You can read George's reviews at georgedigianni.com and learn more about what differentiates him from every other lender you've ever met on my show.
Yeah.
I should be a sponsor. I should be like, hey, I did like, he's got Harvard, but I've got like a year and a half of like online school. So that's probably comparable, right?
You know, it's comparable, Brent.
It is.
Yeah, that guy, in all seriousness, he does have he has a strong bio. I mean, he really does. I can't remember, did he even mention that he used to be a radio host on the Ticket and for a long time? Yeah, he's this guy.
Well, I remember hearing him on the Ticket all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I mean, he really is. I think very well of him, and we're looking forward to having our relationship with him. We got 2 other great sponsors too, and these guys have been with us for a long time. If I like a new guy coming in, I damn well like the ones that've been doing with us for a long time. So go ahead and talk about them too.
All right, so we've got Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections. He's our go-to inspector. We, of course, always give our clients a number of inspectors to choose from, but Martin is the inspector we prefer. He is always on time or early, finishes in a timely manner, gets the report to you the same day, and all reports are color-coded. red for serious issues and blue for minor things to look at. You can always book him at bpginspections.com or reach him at 817-401-3240. That is Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections. And last but not least, Greg Holdberg is with Liberator Health Insurance. Your simple solution to affordable healthcare is here. Join the Liberator movement and take control of your healthcare. $5 million lifetime maximum per policy. Customize your healthcare plan to fit your healthcare and budget needs. Use any doctor or hospital without a penalty. For additional savings, use the PPO network at no additional charge. Teledoc is included in all plans. Save 40 to 60% on your premiums. The Liberator deal of the week: a father and his 3 sons, $372 per month, and that includes dental. Now offering a health savings account Visa debit card plan. As an independent agency, Liberator is committed to transforming healthcare in Texas through innovative healthcare plans that are affordable and rich in benefits. For more information and to get a quick quote, call or text Greg Holdberg, independent health insurance broker, at 214-886-4688 or visit them at liberatorhealthinsurance.com.
Yeah, you know what I like about Greg too is that everybody has insurance is different for everybody. Everybody has a different type of what they're looking for, and some people want excessive coverage and they're willing to pay a lot for it. Some people are like, hey, look, I don't need all that. I just need this and that. It's important that you talk to multiple guys out there, and that's why I like his. His is different. His isn't the same old thing, and I think it's important. I think he's a very good alternative when you're looking. He might not be the exact guy for you, but for a lot of them it would be, and that's what I really like about his field there.
I'm going to start using this line for myself too. Where was it? That are affordable and rich in benefits. I'm going to use that for myself.
Affordable and rich in benefits. Yeah, it's funny. I had there was a good one that I liked today too. That was from a phrase standpoint. Actually, it was our sponsor, George DiGianni. He was on it. He had a seminar today, and I watched it. And one of the guys, what did he say? He said he was talking about social media, and he mentioned that it's relational currency. I like that. It's relational currency. That was a good one too. That's a good one for your real estate agents too. Relationship currency. That's how important he viewed social media. That's great. All right, let's talk about our last guy, our one of our longtime vendors there, Mr. Martin Cooley.
I already did that one, Robert.
Did you really? When did you start with him?
No, I didn't second.
You didn't do that. Did you do it?
I did Martin second.
Oh, wow. It must have gone through quick.
So we have to go to the judges?
That just shows you how much I have on my mind right now, because I am sitting here listening, and I didn't turn away maybe once, and Brent already went through and did that. So, Brent, seriously, I'm actually backtracking. I still don't remember you doing that spiel just then. So
it's all right. Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Well, that or I'm having a stroke. So
if
anything happens, give someone a shout. Well, Martin just got 2 plugs there. Martin's great. Yeah, he always is. We love having him in there. So thank you for all the sponsors. Really, it's always a good show to sponsor on. Like I said, we have a very good archive following. A lot of our show gets shared amongst brokerages. And plus, if you're in the real estate field, obviously you're talking to a lot of core real estate agents out there. And we're fortunate that we do work for what's considered to be one of the largest, most recognized brokerages in the world in Keller Williams. And a lot of that feeds through the Keller Williams family too. So for us, it's a good place to, we think it's a very good place for you guys to advertise on. It goes a lot further than you think. And of course, anybody that's sponsoring our show, we try very hard for them. We really do. We want them to do well. We want all of our clients to have choices. And we mean that. We don't, just because they're our referrals doesn't mean we push them only, but we definitely want them to get what they need by doing that, those advertisements for us. So really appreciate it. All right. So Brent, I want you to start off, talk about, explain the appraisal process in general. Explain what we're talking about before we get into it.
So obviously an appraisal is where the lender is going to send an independent third party to confirm the value of the house, that what the lender is lending out that money, that it's going to be backed up by the value of the house, right? So, they're not going to lend out $1 million, but the house is only worth $500,000. So that's the ultimate goal for the lender, is just to make sure that they are getting what they're paying for.
Okay.
It does not protect the buyer. It's for the lender.
Yeah. What did you just say? What did you say there?
I said it does not protect the buyer. It's for the lender.
Right. So and that's actually where I was going with my next question from a concept point. Who does the appraiser work for?
Yeah, it works for the lender.
He does. Or she does. They
But
work
who
for the
pays
lender.
for it? The buyer.
That's right. And that's weird.
It is weird, actually. The lender should pay for it.
Well, and look, so this isn't just side conversation. This is the first of many takeaways on the show today. That is interesting that the buyer pays for it, yet they don't work for them. Now,
Yeah.
that causes complications, right? One of the main complications is appraiser probably doesn't give a damn what the buyer says.
No.
Right? Even though the buyer's the one that paid for it. Usually in this country, whoever pays you is the one you work for, and that's the one you answer to.
Yep.
That's not so true in the appraisal side of it. Where it also gets difficult is when there's a dispute with the appraiser, which we're going to talk about today, and who can talk to them. You know, one of the most frustrating things for real estate agents across the country is the restraint we have on an appraiser due to the Frank-Dodd Act. You know, the Frank-Dodd Act is legislation that was created due to the crash in 2008, where basically money was given to like a cat because you didn't have to have any requirement.
Yep.
And they give it to anybody, or worse, phantom dummy lenders or borrowers that were fraudulent, and money was just given at will. So the Frank-Dodd Act came in and said, hey, enough of that, which good for them. We had enough of it. It was ridiculous. But instead of fixing the problem reasonably, they do the typical. They went the entire opposite way. They go to the polar opposite. We're like, we're not going to get anything out. We're going to frisk check everybody that comes through here. You know, we're going to do full body checks to make sure this happens. And then they get into, well, part of the problem is that these appraisers are being coerced,
Yep.
which was BS. Those appraisers were never coerced. Any appraiser who is having issues prior to the Dodd Act, they were doing it because they were doing it fraudulently themselves because they were involved in it. It was not because an appraiser was coerced. Anybody who knows an appraiser knows damn good and well they are not going to give a damn what a real estate agent says. So to sit there and suggest that the agents were coercing them, and that's why they put that in place, I'm like, it's so stupid.
Yeah.
That shows a total lack of someone who creates a legal or a law from a legislative body, the highest in the land, that doesn't know a damn thing about that process.
Yep.
Right? That's what happens when you let somebody make that type of decision that doesn't know how it works. And where I'm alluding to with that is we, as real estate agents, we're not allowed to talk to that appraiser at all.
They call, though. They call you sometimes.
And thank you for saying that, because the hypocrisy continues. We're not supposed to talk to them, yet they call us sometimes.
Yeah, hey, what comps did you use?
Yeah, let me do your job for you, which can be questionable sometimes when you ask, why is that guy doing the same thing I did? You know?
Yep.
So these are tough things, right? So another takeaway from the show, right, as a real estate agent, especially one coming up, you really shouldn't be talking to that appraiser. You damn well shouldn't be calling them saying you should have done this or you should have done that, and you certainly shouldn't document that type of thing.
There's some agents that'll show up and they'll walk through the house with the appraiser pointing out things.
Yeah, and so look, you got to be careful. And that's another good takeaway too. There are veteran agents out there that have trained their newer agents that's what you should do. Y'all, that is not the opinion of this broker or this show. You can argue with me if you want. I'll be happy to pull you online. We can talk about the consequences or the dangers of doing something like that. But it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea to physically meet the appraiser. Even the mere presence of you standing there can be viewed as intimidation because most agents won't do that.
Yep.
And the question begs for, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
Because the only reason you would be there is to exert influence on that appraiser. All right, now this brings me to one of the major points of this particular show and a major takeaway, a lot of takeaways today. So we're telling you, you should not be planning on being there for that appraisal. But nothing says you can't be prepared for that appraisal and that you should have the data where the appraiser can see it when they go in, because that is not suggesting that the appraiser does what you say.
Yep.
What that's suggesting is, hey, I'm intelligent too, and I comp for a living, and this is what I got to get to this value. Here are the things that maybe you don't know about this house, because this is another takeaway here as well. A lot of times if the appraiser goes in and appraises the house, they might not know the upgrades to it. They might not know that the owner put in $20,000 worth of hardwood 2 years ago. We have to explain that to them. Now, because of legislation, which you would think that's something reasonable to tell an appraiser, but because of legislation, we can't. So all we can do is provide the information, hoping that they have enough professionalism to read what's on there. That is the way you prepare for the appraiser coming in. Not through conversation, not through I'm going to talk to them, and certainly not I'm going to talk to them after. Want another takeaway from today's show? You are wasting time contradicting an appraiser after they're done. If you're going to contradict an appraiser, you better do it before. Because let me tell you one thing that the appraisers don't like, and any other human being in business for that matter. An appraiser and nobody else enjoys doing their job, completing their task, to have someone else say, hey, you didn't do that right. Because most people, especially professionals, when they're told they didn't do something right, they don't respond in kind.
Nope.
It is human nature to respond in a negative way.
Yeah, they get defensive.
Defensive. Very few of them will be like, oh, you're right. I missed it. What an idiot I am. Let's change that and document that I'm an idiot. And by the way, now we need to change this and submit it to somebody else that can think that I'm an idiot that I work for. Right? That's not going to happen.
No.
Yeah. Common sense should dictate to you. If you heard that, if you've never gone through this process, you should be like, hey, that guy's right. Why would anybody do that? They won't.
Yep.
So the takeaway with the emphasis is your battle has to be fought on the front end. That's probably the best takeaway of the show for sure. Because again, everything that's on the show is typically not in the books.
No.
The brokers don't train you that way. They train you what the appraisal is, when it is, what time frame it is, and what the consequence of it is. Most of them don't go in there and say, if I were you, I'd make sure I've done this, 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 and this before you go in there. Now, what's tough about the appraisal show is that sometimes we get into a shared conversation about comps. So our comp show is about 3 or 4 segment shows,
Yep.
which we haven't done in a while. But we borderline sharing the same information. We're going to try very hard not to do that over the next 15 or 20 minutes. In fact, I'm probably going to be a little bit shorter today because the schedule is really rough. So I'm probably going to cut this off in 15 minutes or so. But when we're going through and we're taking those samples of what we're looking at and what we're trying to comp, it very much varies between the two subjects. It's very hard to separate the two, but the point I'm trying to make is if you're going to get something under contract and you've assigned value to it and your hope is that that value is going to make it through appraisal, you better damn well have 3 comps that back up that value. Not 1,
Nope.
not 2, and I didn't ask for 8 or 10 either. You need 3.
Yep.
At a minimum. And let me tell you why. It's not for fun. The reason why you have to have 3 is because the appraiser, per their requirements of the Appraisal Act, they have to have at least 3.
Yep.
Which means if they have to at least 3, they are going to find 3 similar ones. If they can't find 3 similar ones in that neighborhood, they're going to keep going as close as they can until they find something similar. Now, the problem with that is every subdivision you move over could be that much different. There are some that are literally across the street that are completely different.
Yep.
Which causes us a lot of pain in this industry because now you've got someone who's taken a comp that has not driven through that area, that maybe doesn't know that area very well, whereas you do, and they've put a house in there that you would have never in your life put. And lo and behold, it lowered the value of the home.
Oh, it's best too. Right before your appraisal, there's a house that closed in the same neighborhood that sold way under, and so that's what I'm
Yeah. So you want to talk about things that aren't pleasant is when we go through this process and we do find the 3, and 2 of them are really good. and they suggest what we suggested.
Yep.
But then there's one that's awful.
Yep.
And for whatever reason that happened, now the appraiser's including it because it was similar. Now, again, I have a lot of objections to the appraisal process. In fact, I'm pretty sure that this is for sure going to be a second segment next week, because we're only going to really talk about the beginning parts of the process, and it's important to me to go through this whole thing. So I can already tell you, we're probably just going to keep this going next week. But here's the thing. You would think by my tone that I don't like appraisers and I don't believe in the appraisal industry. That is not true. That's not by anywhere close to true. In fact, a lot of my friends are appraisers, and I would be willing to guesstimate that 95% of them are very good at what they do and are very competent. It is that 5 that I'm talking about. That 5% is a pain in our ass.
Yep.
They are not qualified. They might be new, and they are about to ruin a massive financial deal and a massive personal goal of 2 families because they don't know what they're doing. And that, my friends, is what bothers me about the appraisal industry. Those few bad apples that have tremendous power because some idiot on Capitol Hill said that person should make that comment or that decision.
Yeah.
Now, if you aren't following what I'm talking about, here's a good example. Let's say I list a house. All right. I'm a 20-year vet, deemed an expert in this field, which I actually take pride in. You know, some people talk about being an expert, and you're like, well, why would you call yourself? That's the only thing I've ever been good at, is knowing my real estate, knowing what is right and what's wrong, okay? And I will stand in front of anybody any day if they want to discuss, they think something that I'm different on real estate or real estate law. We can talk all day if you want to, because I'm telling you right now, there's not much I hadn't seen, okay? So let's say someone like me got the comps on a home, and I know for a fact the house is worth $800. There's no if. It's $800, okay? Then an appraiser who's done this for less than a year, which is very possible, and I'm not saying all appraisers that have done it for less than a year are bad. I'm saying some are. The mere common sense that they haven't done it long enough would factor in. Let's say that person comes in and they do their little technical report and they follow the rules that they learned in school, and they say it's $750. Now, according to the way this process works, their value is the one we're going on, not mine.
Yep.
So come to find out, if you hadn't figured it out yet, this happened to me. Right? So come to find out, this person's been doing it for less than 6 months. It's their third appraisal. It's their first one over $300K, and it's $800K, which that's a problem too, because if you don't know luxury versus regular, that's a problem, right?
Yep.
And then I find out, this is a few years ago because they don't do this as much anymore. Then I find out they're stationed out of Mobile, Alabama.
Oh.
So I got someone who hasn't done this more than a year, that hasn't done more than 3, that hasn't done a luxury home, that lives some, 800, 1,100 miles away? I don't know what it is. In Mobile, a very small regional city compared to Dallas-Fort Worth, telling me that my value's not right.
Yep.
That's pretty hypocritical. In fact, it's just dumb. It's dumb. I will tell you, the times that I come across that, it's embarrassing, not for me, but for the other person. Because if I do contradict them, even listening to the response is annoying.
Yep.
Because I'm like, I really don't need to hear it.
Yep.
I'm telling you, that's the way it should be. Now, you want to get back to our beginning conversation? Some people would actually say, well, that's the part that's the problem. There's persuasion. I go, hold on. There's one thing about being persuasive from a deceitful level. There's another thing about being persuasive as to, hey, you're doing it wrong.
That's influential.
That's right. You're doing it wrong there, dipshit. That's not how you're supposed to do that. That house, there were 4 others that could have gone in there. But because your training told you this one should go in there and you forgot that you have to use common sense and you have no experience, that didn't go in there. And now we got a problem. All right?
I had the same thing happen to me last year where we missed by 40K. And like you said, you can sit there and argue with the appraiser and have them redo it, a reconsideration they call it, and they never do anything. And it got to the point where my seller said, no, I'm not dropping. I'm going to pay for another appraisal for the buyer. And we paid for another one and it made value. So, you know, $100 or whatever, or no, $500 makes it well worth it.
Yeah. You know, Brent, I don't think we magnify or emphasize enough the disappointment in the appraisal failure. You know, it's bad enough for our livelihoods that we lose money because of somebody else. Yep. Remember, we didn't coerce anybody into this deal. We had 2 independent parties agree. And we have a buyer who said they're willing to pay for X amount. And someone else who has nothing to do with the transaction says, well, you can't do that. You guys are wrong. Well, no, I want it. Who asked you? I'm the one who wants it. And now this person, and I'll never get over, and I'm talking about a bad appraiser, not a good one. I'm talking about if a good one says it's not going to go, I'm like, most of the time I would have said, yeah, you're right. I don't know how this happened. Hey, no hypocritical things here. Our guys have done it before too. Our guys have done it where they call me and say, hey, I missed appraisal. And the first thing I say is, I want to see the comps. And they're like, well, I really don't. I'm like, oh, don't start with me. I go, you're sitting there talking about you got an issue with an appraisal and you can't back it up? What did you think was going to happen? You know, we go both ways on this. You know, if our guys screw that up, we're on top. Because look, through our group, and a lot of Keller Williams as well, we make damn sure before they do that stuff that they made sure that they had backup on it. That they didn't just randomly assign a number and hope and pray that it works. We made sure, per the guidelines on the checklist, that they verified that was the amount.
To be fair, too, though, a lot of times the seller wants to try high, right, to try to get anything. And
so that's a good transition, and I think that's a good way to do this show without actually going through the procedure, because I think this will be a good separation between procedure. We'll do procedure next week versus just the theoretical, because that is the problem right now. The problem right now, and again, we have people across the country that watch, but especially in Texas. Texas is obviously overvalued at this point. The houses are going way above what they should be. And again, if you're a general public and you're watching, you should take no qualms to the effect that if you've purchased a house in the last year, most likely you've overpaid for it. And that's not a bad thing because interest is super low. A lot of people think they're screwed because they're overpaying. I'm like, that's not true. If you were overpaying and the interest rate was high, yeah, you'd be getting screwed. That's not what's happening here. Here, you're almost being given free money to get your own investment, and you're paying a little more than the seller thought it was worth.
Where are you seeing trends go when an appraiser comes in this market and they see, you know, well, we don't really have the solds to justify it, but everything's trending up? Are they being more lenient right now? Or
so it goes back to our initial conversation. It depends whether they're experienced or not.
Yeah.
If they're experienced, they know in good conscience that time is of the essence in the last few months. They know that if they go back 6 months, that comp might not be what the house is today.
Yeah.
They're trained that they preferably want under 90 days comps. But they can go back 6 months if they need to.
Yep.
Well, in this market, if you're going 6 months back, you might be pulling it out where you are. You're pulling an outdated property compared to what it's selling for now.
Yep.
So, these are issues that we have, and you've got all these people out there doing it, and we have high values, but we know that the comps are on there. Now, to answer your question, the good ones do start looking at the analysis, and they do start making comments on, hey, look, whereas the exact comps that we have listed here do not portray the value of the current contract, it is clear to us by looking at the active and the pending statuses and the status of the houses that are under contract right now that there has been a significant change in value.
Yeah, we're trending up.
That is a professional way to draft an appraisal to where you are giving a professional opinion. You're not just doing the task or the instructions that you were supposed to do. It's telling you that sometimes the instructions might not necessarily be correct depending on the environment. And that you might for once have to use your head and put some common sense into this.
Yep.
Now, I told you I'm not hypocritical, and that if I was going to, I go both ways with this. But the appraisers, when they go through and they have done it right, and they have made the adjustments, the Dot Act was very good about saying that appraisers now can adjust because of upgrades, and they could actually go down versus lack of upgrades. This was something the Dot Act actually did right, because it finally did give an appraiser the right to say, hey, look, we can't just go by square footage in this house right next to us, because this is what's happened. And this house has more or less. That was actually a good thing the Dot Act did. So I won't just bash one thing.
Yep.
I'll give them their fair due. Now, I'll bash the Dot Act a lot more because of what it is. But one thing they did right is giving an appraiser power to justify what's in the house versus not what's in the house and what's happened in the neighborhood.
Right.
Okay. Now, the problem with that becomes, once again, the appraiser has to be competent in what they're doing.
Yep.
And they have to be using the right items to make that justification, because if they're not, we're in the same boat.
Well, their formulas are super weird, right? I mean, and it's something that we don't.
So look, and this is one we're going to get into next week, but I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of a preview of next week, and we'll use it as a takeaway on this show, and we'll use it as a takeaway on the next show. The phrase again exactly how you said it. I want to make sure I answer it exactly like you said it.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, what did you say? I want to answer.
I was just saying that the appraisers use a weird formula. The way
Okay, because you said the word that was weird I wanted to get at.
Yeah.
So they do. So I've spoken with a lot of my appraisal friends over the years. And one thing I don't like, per that same conversation, the appraisers are given the power to add value, like let's say to an upgrade. Let's say if they see a granite countertop, whereas before the Dot Act, they really couldn't say anything about that. All they could say is, well, the neighborhoods are similar and the size is similar.
Yeah.
But now they can go in and say, well, it looks to me like that granite adds 5,000.
Yeah.
Now, what I don't like about this entire process, and it was per your words exactly, weird, there is no calculation for how they get that volume or how they get that number for that granite. It's a guesstimate. Now, some of my friends will argue, well, we look at the square feet and we divide back in how much. I'm like, yeah, you can't do that.
Yep.
I go, you can't do that, because here's the bottom line. If that's an Italian marble cut on that countertop, that's probably $10,000 to $15,000 more than just a regular granite slab.
Yep.
And if you don't know your granite and your marble, which appraisers are not interior decorators, sometimes they struggle with that. To be fair, some real estate agents struggle with it. You're going to make a big mistake. Now, again, this will be another conversation next week too, but the pools are a good one. And I'll give you a little preview of that one, because we'll talk more about the pools, because the pools are a big deal, especially in Texas. But for an appraiser to just randomly say a pool is worth X, is just ridiculous. Especially today's pools. Today's pools are built with so many different items. So many different things that go into them, from the travertine to the marble to the glass to the pebble tech to the quartz to the grotto to the lights. There is no way an appraiser can just say, bam, that's it. Yep. And that's where we really start struggling. I love the way the show went. You know, we don't. All of our shows are live. We just go on a topic that we know we can talk about for a long time. But it's a good transition, because we've kind of given you the overlay to the appraisal and what some of the problems are. Now we're going to show you next week specifically, when we go in, what some of these problems are. We are going to talk about granite. We're going to talk about hardwood. We're going to talk about the pools. And then, and this is the best part, and this is why I said this was a good transition, the heart of next week, and next week's probably a better show. Next week, we're going to tell you exactly what to do when this all goes wrong. We're going to show you the procedure, what happens when the value comes in, because there is a procedure. There are steps in place as to what needs to happen for the steel to be saved. So that's going to be a really good show.
Start drinking.
Itself. What's that?
And start drinking.
Start drinking. Yeah, you'll need it. All right, guys, look, I'm going to cut it a little bit short today. We've got a busy day. I want to thank everyone for watching. Again, good show for not just new, but really existing, like even the 5 to 10 year agents in there. Some of them still grasp problems with this particular topic. So hopefully you enjoyed that topic. We are officially going to do this one next week. We're going to just go right into it. In fact, Brent, just remind me where we cut off that we're actually going to start the process of analyzing how they value, that we'll have a little bit of the comp conversation, and then we'll talk about what the procedure is if it goes wrong. Okay. And that will definitely fill up next week's show. Okay?
Sounds good.
You know what? Maybe we could even look at getting, maybe we should, well, I don't know if I want to bring in the appraiser guest, because sometimes they take offense to the way we're doing it, even though that's not the person we're taking offense to. So maybe I won't do that.
Let's bring a bad one in that we've had problems with and just berate them.
And I wanted to bring this guy on intentionally. All right, guys. Look, hey, have a great week. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks for watching. Take care. Yep.